Call this meeting to order. If we could please stand and do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start tonight's meeting by reviewing our mission. Our mission is to prepare and support all students within a culture of excellence to do their best and to be their best so that each can be a successful contributing citizen able to adapt to change and to successfully respond to the future. Do I have anybody here for public participation? Okay, so let's start with some recognitions and acknowledgments. And we have some important recognitions tonight, and we're going to start by recognizing Barbara Rimmer for 40 years of service, and Kim Spencer. Thank you, Barbara.
So if Barbara is sitting in the second front row. So I elicited a little bit of help from some of the teachers in Minot, since I don't know Barbara that well, but it's been a pleasure to start the school year with Barbara as one of our second grade teachers, so really nice. And so here are some of the comments that I got from some of the teachers. And I was going to even do a little bit of a slideshow, but I know that we like to keep things moving. So on one character day some years ago at Minot Consolidated School, Barbara dressed as Mrs. Wishy-Washy, which is a character in a book who, I'm not sure if everybody knows that story, but I think she lives on a farm, and there was a cow and a duck and a pig that kept on getting dirty, and Miss Wishy-Washy would scrub and scrub and scrub and send them on their way, and they would just go back to the mud pile and get dirty, dirty, dirty. So Barbara dressed up as Mrs. Wishy-Washy, and the character really fit her as she keeps her house so spotlessly clean. So that was a bit of information about Barbara that I learned. And so this is from another teacher. She started teaching in 1974 as a 5th grade language arts teacher. Is that correct? Okay. And Barb is always the first to volunteer to work at suppers and other events. You can often find her behind the dessert or the food sale table. And then I have lots of little pieces, but I'm just going to read a couple. So she is empathetic with students and peers. She searches for the best ways to facilitate and support learning. She is a positive presence at Minot School for students and staff. She's very flexible. She has her master's degree in reading. She is at school every day at 6:45, and she gives 100% in cooperating with and helping staff members. She is a team player all the way. So I thought those were worth everybody's ears, and wanted to give Barbara that time. So thank you, Barbara.
I appreciate that you would acknowledge my 40 years.
40 something.
And you must have spent some time today. I know our time's precious to get all this information. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks for coming, Barb.
I actually had Miss Rimmer when I was in 5th grade. I don't know if she remembers. And I don't think your first class, but one of the first classes. And I just remember you as always being such a really wonderful teacher and just really strong, because there were so many kids that, and I won't name names here, but who loved to like push buttons and try to so it was a pleasure too. So.
Thank you, Barb, and thank you, Mrs. Hobart, for accompanying her.
No, Mrs. Hobart. Yeah.
Good. And Kathy Wolfson, and if you could talk a little bit about Kathy, Rick?
Yeah, I don't have as much down as the biggest, and Mrs. Wolfson couldn't be here. She does not drive any longer after dark, and that's been the case for a few years. So she couldn't be here to be a part of the process tonight, but wanted to send her appreciation as well for recognizing her for her 40 years. The fact that she was most proud of, when I sat down with her and talked about that she was being recognized tonight, was when we had the opening day, and I asked the staff members who had Mrs. Wolfson as a teacher, those people that she had inspired to come back to education, particularly in this district. And I believe there were 8 of them who are current teachers for our district that had her. So, and that's what she was most proud of, was that that is what she had given to her students. So.
Great. Thank you. And one of our goals as a board is to retain good teachers. So you're helping us meet that goal. So thank you. And we also wanted to recognize a couple of committees that have really gone the extra mile this summer, and Tina's going to do that.
Wanted to talk a little bit about our Teacher Evaluation and Professional Growth Committee. We have a committee that's been working since October 2012 on our evaluation plan, and you all approved the people on that committee last year, and so did our Teachers Association. And those, because it's been like a 2-year process to go through that whole all of that work, having to think about what's going to be in our evaluation committee, what standards we're going to follow, how we are going to make sure it's fair for everybody, just all of those things. And this summer they met 2 different times on their summer vacation, which is always a big commitment for people. And they have set up a process I shared on the first day of school, that this year's our pilot year, and so we have all our new staff are going to be assessed with the new system that they've developed, and we have volunteers that we're asking, so we have some veteran staff also being assessed with that system. So we have some teachers who will be using it fully. We have other teachers, all of our staff will be setting goals through the system that is set, and also doing a peer observation. So we got big changes ahead, and I just wanted to recognize that committee for that work, and let you know that we will be starting to put that in place this year through our pilot process.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, great. I wanted to thank the members of the pre-K through 6th grade level facilitator team, and that includes 1 teacher from each grade level, and those teachers are Sarah Jamo, Jen Lacombe, Kim Bronk, Linda Bernier, Amy Robinson, Megan Lyons, and Katie Pullier. And Darcy Hilton will be joining us at our next meeting starting tomorrow, as well as all 3 elementary school principals, and I'm on that team. And this is a team that is looking at staff teacher feedback and then designing professional development based on the goals in the strategic plan. So this summer we met 3 different times for half and full days to look at the fall and our early release Wednesdays and determine how are we going to use that time to meet the goals in the strategic plan. And we've narrowed our focus to fully implementing the Writers' Workshop. We did a kickoff on the 2nd day of school for the full pre-K through 6 staff. Feedback from that has been very positive, and we feel very aligned and very clear on what our work is for this fall. So those teachers did a lot of work this summer, as did Rick and Ryan and Kim, to make sure that we had a great kickoff to this new year.
Thank you. And in addition to that, later in our agenda, there was a letter from Linda Chasen, who indicated that she's no longer going to be able to take our minutes, and she will certainly be missed. And so I want to recognize her for the outstanding job that she's done for us, and thank her. And Kim Spencer is going to do that for us tonight, so thank you to Kim. In terms of our agenda, we don't have any adjustments. Tonight we are going to have a presentation on summer feeding and on the free breakfast and lunch, which I believe is at Elm Street School, and Betty is going to do that. I saw her over in the...
She is here. I did want to point out there is an adjustment to the agenda.
There is a revision in terms of new business in terms of girls ice hockey. But if Betty's here. So So Betty's going to take a few minutes and talk to us some about summer feeding and then the Elm Street School free breakfast and lunch program.
Okay, I was gonna say, if we can get you near a microphone, it might be.
Then let Betty sit.
Yes,
I got a voice.
yeah, but the microphone, the TV won't pick it up,
Okay.
so you need to be near a, yeah.
This is set to go through, but can the screen be turned on? Almost. I don't think you did.
Drew, what she's asking about is the,
Oh, where's the,
Over here.
yeah.
Which one try?
yeah.
Can I ask you a question while we're waiting? Sure. So what's the plan for the notes moving forward?
So, assuming Kim is in agreement, this is I don't know if this is a trial period for her, if she's willing to do it all year. I think she'll know more after tonight.
Oh.
So Kim may keep doing it for us. We did ask other, I mean, we're searching, we're searching for a permanent, and I asked Kim.
I agreed to fill in tonight and see how it went.
Right.
And then, but I've also talked to my co-principals, and one of them may be willing to share with me. So,
Okay,
but tonight,
Okay, yes,
I'll hold
thanks.
them right away.
I've just got a couple of really quick little things, small PowerPoint and a video I wanted to share with you about our summer feeding. This is our 4th year participating in multiple town summer feedings. We, for the last 2 years, have helped with RSU 16 and 17. We went from 11 sites last year to 8 sites this year, but we actually increased about 1,000 more meals served in those sites, so it's gaining momentum. We did that with less help, and the 3 fewer sites brought us to about 10,397 meals served this summer. So it's growing immensely. We did make a couple $1,000s more than we did the previous year. So this piece is good. The folks who were involved, we had Vista from AmeriCorps that worked with us this summer. He helped to do some marketing and kind of touching the places that are hard to touch when the other folks are busy preparing the meals. Bill Foss was one of our van drivers. The 3 managers that run the summer feeding this summer were Maureen Heath from PCS, and they all do a fabulous job. She serves during the regular school year probably an average of about 240 to 50 children every day for a lunch and about 150 kids for breakfast in a really small 15-minute window. So they do a great job there. This is our new manager from Elm Street School, Jeff Lacombe. He's been with us a year, 20 years experience, and his average was about 184 for lunch, and this is last year's statistics at the end of school year. He also is doing a great job for us. And our veteran manager, Randy, is now at the high school, and he serves about 270 kids for breakfast and about 417 or so for lunch average during the school year. And this is just some foods that were on our menus now. We're trying to change the menu up a little bit more colored pictures to increase people's appeal. So that, I have to escape. I'm sorry to get into another area here for this little video. This video is specific to Vermont, but Vermont has gone the process of reducing the eliminating the reduced category for breakfast back in 2009. And they now, this past year, eliminated it for lunch. There's several states that are working towards universal free meals. I actually said that I was hoping this would be a goal for myself for this district. I think we may be having some ways to be able to be successful with this.
And Betty, can you, before you start, I'll tell you after.
Some aren't getting the nutrients they need, and some aren't getting enough to eat at all. Hunger Free Vermont has a solution. Universal school meals. Food should be treated like every other learning tool. Every student gets the same resources for learning. Transportation, desks, calculators, textbooks, a school nurse, even toilet paper. What they don't get is food. Well, you gotta pay for that. And if you can't, it puts you at a real disadvantage. And on top of that, 1 in 5 kids is hungry. It's a problem that many are unaware of, even though it exists in virtually every community. School meals should be something for students not only to enjoy, but also learn from. Vermont kids should be able to eat in a cafeteria that's less like a jungle and more like a family dinner table. A place where students can be nourished socially and mentally, as well as physically. It may seem obvious, but kids who are well-fed perform better in school. A hungry child has a harder time focusing and lacks the energy to learn. Bad eating habits can lead to poor health, which can lead to sick days. It's hard to learn if you can't focus or you're missing school. And you know what's odd? In this sea of junk food, we can simultaneously be overweight and malnourished. Because of an increased focus on nutrition and local food, the meals students eat in the cafeteria are on average more nutritious than bagged lunches. Making school meals part of the educational curriculum will help combat obesity and help students make healthy food choices right into adulthood. There is a childhood obesity epidemic in this country. Bad diets, often the cheapest options, are driving high healthcare costs and causing chronic conditions in children and adults alike. And this doesn't just affect learning. It costs billions of dollars every year. You see, when you're a kid, being different is hard. And despite system safeguards, students still know who among them is receiving free and reduced lunch. If you had to choose between going hungry or eating and being singled out, what are you going to do? More needs to be done to fight childhood hunger and its symptoms. The first step is universal school meals. Universal school meals will give all students access to nutritious food. There will be no segregation or shame in the lunchroom. Everyone will be on equal footing. The effects will radiate from the lunchroom to the classroom and beyond. Principals and educators will see a sharp decline in visits to the office and a sharp increase in overall academic performance. Hunger costs Vermonters $300 million per year, and obesity costs $600 million. Kids who develop healthy eating habits will carry those habits right into adulthood, which will help reduce both hunger and obesity. Universal school meals will allow kitchen staff to focus more on providing nutritious meals and less on operating cash registers to make the business of school lunch work. If demand for school meals increases in Vermont, breakfast and lunch programs can source more of their food from Vermont farms, an equation that equals better food and a stronger economy. The goal at Hunger Free Vermont is simple: to ensure that every child has access to nutritious school meals. It'll lower healthcare costs, help the economy, and make schools a more welcoming place to be. Universal school meals gives every Vermont child a chance to receive the best education possible.
Thank you, Erin.
So I know that was specific to the state of Vermont. I just wanted to mention that Maine has had free breakfast for about 15 years. That's been supplied by a vitamin grant and the anti-tobacco grant. We are working, I say we, I'm president of Maine School Nutrition this next year. And I got the opportunity to sit on a task force with Senator Alfond, which is meeting tomorrow, to work to find ways to end student hunger. And one of those ways that we're working towards is eliminating the reduced category for the lunch. Eventually, we're implementing a lot of programs that are already available in USDA, hoping to find ways to feed all kids, because this is really important, and it's very true. I just recently had a parent call from a child that had come into this district new. There's a little problem right now with direct cert lists being loaded because of a new system in the state, and so they're not in there. The child went without eating for 2 days because he did not want to bring the topic up or speak to anyone, and the father called very saddened sounding. And luckily I was able to find this particular kiddo's information and get him in there right away. But I think this happens more than we realize. And in a conversation with the administrators this past spring, I gave them some data that I looked at from Elm Street School, going from breakfast one year and the previous year of the children not having it free. So the year documented where it was not paid for, where it was not free, the numbers, even within the free and reduced categories, tripled and quadrupled the next year when all the kids got to take their food to the classroom to eat together. And that's in a K through 6 school. It just astounded me that that happened. And the children are not aware of who has what, but the children that are aware themselves must feel this and carry it with them.
So there's free lunch for all students.
Well, I was just going to mention that part. We were doing Provision 2 program. It started off as a pilot program for the breakfast in Bruce Whittier and Elm Street School. And I joined in with the USDA last year to change that program from pilots into Provision 2. And Provision 2 is a program that's been around for 20 years. And it is, you collect data, the next year everyone eats, and you're reimbursed at a higher rate than you are normally. So we opted to try that this year with the 2 schools that were already in the program for breakfast. So Bruce Whittier and Elm Street School, all the children eat for free right now.
For breakfast.
For breakfast and for lunch. And so we're going to continue that. I have to watch the information closely. This program allows you to opt out if it's not fiscally responsible for you, and so I need to track that. But we're going to try, and hopefully we need to still collect the data from the families. Recently you saw some headlines in the news from Auburn schools. They actually went into another program that's fairly new. It's called CEP. And same benefit. All the children will eat for free in that school. We didn't meet the criteria for that program, but this one that we're in right now has been around for 20 years, so I feel pretty confident about the successes that we'll have from it. So hopefully in the next few years, we'll be able to transition all our schools into this so that everyone's eating for free. It'll be a great reward for the children, for the families. So I think that's about everything I had to cover.
Does anyone else have any questions for Betty? Ariel?
One question I have, just so parents will know, is that based on the paperwork that is returned by parents in numbering the free and reduced, or is that based on other outside population data that we don't collect?
Which one are you asking?
I'm asking which is
about
it
the
based
CEP
on?
or
the one that we're currently
the one
using.
we're based on is on both.
Okay. it's
The
based on
data
both.
returned from the families and the direct cert list, the information that we get from the state.
Okay, all right.
Aaron?
So I've heard from a few students in Whittier. I've got 2 kids, one is 7, one is 8 now, and I've heard from a few parents, and they've shared some concerns about the quantity of food that's being served, and some kids actually running out of choices and or not getting the same amount as somebody in the front of the line versus the back. Could you
Well,
speak to that?
I would have to take that up,
Okay.
particularly at the particular schools with the staff.
Okay.
But we regulate to serve everyone the same.
Okay.
Because it's now free, there may be an adjustment period of people realizing how much needs to be produced.
Okay.
Because maybe people are partaking that were not previously.
Understood.
So they should all get the same size, they all have the same option, they get to take so many components.
Okay.
Sometimes some children don't take all the components and
Mhm.
then return saying they're hungry. So that's why we encourage them to take them all before they leave the cafe, et cetera.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Tina?
Well, I was gonna ask about the funding, so in Vermont, and how they're funding this. Is it state and federal funding?
It's
Is that
state
how-
funding for the.
State.
And what they're doing is we call it eliminating the reduced category, but they're actually supplementing it. The same
Okay.
where our state has been supplementing the breakfast for reduced for several years out of a fund, a grant fund. So the task force that we're working with right now, we're trying to find ways that this can be funded by the state. So hopefully, it's a stepping stone to universal free for everyone across the state. And then our food service department now is absorbing these costs. But if we have programming and state help in effect, then we won't be absorbing those costs, and maybe it'll just be better for us. It will be better for us.
So in order, you said for it to benefit us fiscally, so we get reimbursed at a higher rate now for those, so what we're hoping is more students will partake.
Yes.
It'll get
It's
reimbursed
more
at that higher
beneficial
rate.
to us. The
And
more
then it will cover it.
participation we get.
Okay.
The rate is higher for everyone. It's not categorized like it was as free, reduced, and paid. You used to get 3 sets of reimbursement.
So
In
the
this
more, the
program-
more meals you serve, the
Yes,
more
the
money we're
better
gonna
it-
get.
yes.
Good.
Yeah, and we serve them a lot of really good foods, a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm sure you've seen pictures. You'll see more because I've got a nice new color printer, so more will be coming up.
That was my question, but there are options.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Betty. Okay, let's look at our minutes from our meeting on 8/18. Do we have a motion in terms of those minutes? Steve, and a second from
Second.
Tina. Is there any discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Anybody abstaining? And 2 abstentions. Okay, acceptance of the financial statement. Move to accept from Steve, second from Annette. And so do we have any discussion? I think Tina has some things she'd like to point out and share with us.
No, we're not broke already, we're doing well. I'll just give you an overview first, and then I had a couple of specific questions from Jen, so I'll answer those and a few others. All of our schools are between .87 and .90 for the budget, which is, right where they should be. These first few months, it's not quite as accurate to be looking at that because teachers haven't started yet, so none of the salaries are, hadn't been started by the end of August, so none of the salaries are paid out yet and things like that. But some things are totally paid out, so gives us a good starting point. But yeah, all of them are up there close to the .90, which is good. Let me just see, I've got a few things I wanted to point out to you in case you had questions. If you went to page 9 of your financials, This was a question that Jen had. She was just asking why the ed tech benefits are significantly overspent, but the ed tech salary has not been spent at all. Ed techs don't work, of course, in the summer, so there's no pay there yet. But the ed tech benefits, there are times when, at the beginning of the year, we'll notice that something's not put in the right place. And so this is a person who has a spouse in the district, and it's supposed to be split between the two of them, and it all got put into her line. So again, those kind of corrections happen when we notice any discrepancy. So that's that has been already identified and fixed. If you look at the next page, on page 10, the same kind of thing. This is just an error in coding that we noticed right away. It shows professional, trying to see which line it is, school level tech assistant benefits. You can see it's a 1.11, which would indicate that it's already, there was money put back in there. And this person's salary and benefits are spread between 5 schools, but it didn't happen on this line. So again, they will notice a mistake and will go, oh, that needs to be divided on 5 lines. One of the things I wanted to point out, if you look at page 11, at the bottom, substitutes. Remember how we were having a problem with custodian substitute lines, and we re-budgeted to meet to actual? You'll notice that our sublines in all of the schools are looking strong right now. We have 0.77 left in the subline, and a lot of vacations are taken in the summer, so that's a very healthy line. And below that is benefits. That again may just be a correction that needs to happen, or it may be that someone has a different benefit this year than they've had in the past. But I did want to point out sublines because I know we talked about that a lot last year. If you look at page 12, sorry, this is the charter school money, and this is for PCS. That's where most of our charter school students come from. And we had $104,000 budgeted. You can see that has not been paid out yet. We pay that out. Again, it's about 3/4 of the way down the page. If you can't find it, it says tuition paid to charter schools. That hasn't been paid out yet, but we pay that quarterly. And we get a list from them and a bill of who's in attendance. And if we have some students leave there by the second quarter, then they're eliminated from the bill. So we pay by quarter, basically.
Do we pay
Yes.
on daily numbers per quarter or automatically? If they start in the second quarter, do we pay them for the whole quarter or just?
I believe so. I think it's similar to our October 1 count. They get a count at a certain time, and then that's what we're billed out because, but I'm not positive. That's a good question, Steve.
Days were counted, the kids didn't go, we didn't pay.
Right, yeah. I can ask. I'm not positive on that answer.
Can you remind me how many students that represents?
Yeah, we have, well, in the whole district, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 charter school students. And we budgeted, for a total, we budgeted $130,000, and our total cost is $123,000 right now. Part of the unexpected cost is that it costs us just under $8,000 per student, but when you have a special ed student going, it costs $16,000, so we have 2 special ed students that are there, so that's $32,000 for 2 students. They get more funding for special ed, as we do as well.
Have you ever done it, like surveyed the families and found out why they're choosing to leave us and go to a charter school to see if it's something they're offering versus not attaining here?
We haven't done a formal survey. I do know that I have had parents say, well, they have a focus on art or something like that. Sometimes it's special needs that their child have, and they feel like a less traditional format would help their children be more successful. So I think there's probably a variety of reasons. We know the names. We could survey them if the board wanted us to do that. But anyway, I did want to point out that that's a big bill that we have not paid yet.
Are those all going to Fiddleheads, or are they
We have
the virtual?
Yeah, we have one high school student doing the virtual main connect, and, yeah, and I know some, districts got hit hard with that. They had 250-something, or more than 200 students, sign up for the virtual school, so we're fortunate to just have the one. Okay, back to the financial. You can see on page 15, we have a classroom lease purchase, and this is with Bruce Whittier for the modular. That's totally paid out, so it says 0, and that's not a problem. We paid all at one time. So if anybody was worried that we have no money left for our lease purchase, that's why. Again, subs are looking good in all of the buildings. If you look on page 24, we have our student assessment system. We paid for our NWEA or NUIA testing, which we do with our kindergarten all the way through 9th grade. We're overspent just a little bit in that. The cost is a little more than we budgeted, and part of that is that we're assessing 2nd graders, and in the past we've done 3rd through 9th. So just puts us about $500 over what we budgeted for that, so we're not concerned about that too much. If you look down at the bottom of that page, the student and staff support, the question has often come up about our tuition payments and how much money we have. This is for teachers to take courses. And remember, last year by the middle of July, we said most of that money was spent out. You can see this year we still have $24,000 in the K-8 and over $8,000 in the 9 through 12. So we're looking good with that line as well, and it doesn't look like we're going to run out this year. So that's good news for our teachers who want to take classes. If you look at the RSU committee, that's you, on page 26. We have .78 left in the budget for the committee, and but that's not a concern. You have totally paid out your liability and also started paying on the audit, which are our big expenses. And so we're right along with where we should be, and again, dues and fees have been paid out. So our staff, you can see our legal lines. We spent about, looks like $6,000 out of our legal fees line. That's at .84. That's about, if we keep at that level, that's about all we'll have for the year. Hopefully we won't have as much once school starts. Trying to remember what Jen's other question was. Oh, if you look on page 33, Jen had a question about the ed tech salary here being overspent, and also the benefit line. This is extended year. This is for our summer school for our special ed. And so if you'll look above, you'll see the teacher salary has a lot of money left in it. So some years they'll have more teachers working, and other years techs, and it just depends on the students and what their needs are. So those lines kind of all mesh together and balance themselves out. And on page 34, you'll see our bus loan lease purchases are in there. And again, we have another, the high school, no, the charter school cost, you can see about halfway down. We haven't spent out for that, but about $10,400 of our transportation costs go to the charter schools. And that's about it for our facilities.
They go to charter school?
The charter schools, we have to pay a couple of different things to them. We have to pay some money towards transportation. They get a certain percentage of our allocation. We pay some technology money, and we pay like a basic per pupil rate. We also have to pay 3% to the commissioner, which is about $3,500, and we have to, yeah, that's the last thing, the 3% to the commissioner. That actually is for the Charter School Commission that meets to decide whether charter schools get accepted into
Existence.
Yes.
They just texted me to ask me to turn off the projector because the bulb is on its way out.
think we tried and it wouldn't go off.
There we go.
Okay.
Yes? Which one's yes? Is it on again? Sean is yes on again?
Are you, it's asking if you're
Twice.
sure,
Yeah.
so go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got a gun in the truck.
Maybe, why don't we give this to Sean? Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda, from home.
So that's it for the financials. I don't know if anybody
there
had any
any-
other questions?
Any questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That was unanimous. And there is no old business and new business. As you're aware, we do have a vacant seat, Joe Parent's seat. And the process is for the Poland selectmen to approve that board member for that vacant seat. When they put that out there, they have one candidate, and there's was a letter within your packet concerning that candidate. And as part of that letter, it also says that the candidate has a sister who is a teacher within the district. So whether that's the person that they choose is up to the Poland selectmen, but we would need to decide if that is the person that they choose, if we're willing to make that exception based on our nepotism policy. So that's also in your packet. And if you want to read through that, we need to talk about that in case that is the candidate that they suggest.
What gives us the right? Isn't that state law that they can't?
It's state law that it can't be a spouse.
No, I'm talking about.
The nepotism, yes. What we would be deciding was, would it be okay for a sister of an employee to be part of a board? And if you read through the policy, what state law says is that it can't be a spouse.
So your policy is more restrictive than the state's policy.
Right.
And,
What it says in our policy is that it shall be the policy of the RSU 16 school board not to employ as a school unit staff person any person who is a member of the immediate family or a board member. And an immediate family defined in our policy is spouse, brother, sister, parent, son, or daughter. So it says that we may approve an exception to that if the candidate's qualified for the position that they've applied for and the hiring is in the best interest of the school system and the candidate is not a spouse. So, Tina, you want to add?
yeah, so I met with Bradley Plant, and what our goal was is to look at the candidates that applied and then to make a recommendation to the selectmen after we kind of did our own maybe interview process and reviewed the credentials. And so we only have one. So what I told Bradley is they can't nominate someone that, or it doesn't make sense for them to nominate someone that we're then going to say, no, we have a policy against it, we're not going to accept them. So this is good timing for us because their selectmen meeting's next week. And what will happen is you will either decide if you want to make an exception so that Kelly Crockett could be considered a candidate, and then of course the town selectmen decide if that is their candidate or not us. But if you say you don't want to make the exception, what we would then do is we would put it back out there as we're still looking for a candidate because the RSU has a nepotism policy and they don't want to fill it with a family member of the spouse. So that's basically what we're asking tonight is, do you want to make the exception or not? And if you don't, we'll definitely just open back up and be finding another candidate.
And again, you're just asking Poland residents, you're not asking the board.
Because it's our policy, it would be
It's-
the board.
We're
It's the
asking
board.
because we'd
All right,
have
I
to
just wanted to be clear, I
Yes,
understood right.
yeah, so Poland selectmen will make, even if we say we'd make the exception, the Poland selectmen could say, no, we don't want
Understood.
a board member who has a sister on the committee, we think it'd be a conflict of interest. So it's just, we're trying to get a feel here tonight how the board feels before they go through that process, rather than doing it the other way around.
We had a episode years ago in Minot, a guy got elected to the school board and his wife was teaching Mechanic Falls.
And that was a spouse, so
That was a
that's not
spouse.
allowed by state law. Ours is more restrictive than state law.
So are you looking for a motion to either accept this person or
Why
not?
don't you make a motion, then we'll discuss it further.
Okay.
Maybe what we don't accept.
Yeah, I would say that
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we don't accept this candidate based on the,
You have a second for
Nepotism.
that? Julie, second. Is there a discussion? Grace, did you have a question?
I was just wondering why we had the, why we went further than the state policy and added that in. Is there a reason that I just feel like I don't really like making exceptions to policies, so it's strange that we would even have that in there, that we may make an exception. And if we did make an exception, the next time that there needs to be an exception, why would we say no, I guess? It seems like it puts us in a weird spot, so I was wondering if there's a reason for that.
Ed, do you
I
know?
think the reason was basically what we have here tonight is nobody else interested and we have a vacancy. And, probably can get filled eventually, but, how long do we want to have a vacancy, that's all. So I think that's,
But the point behind putting in, why don't we want a brother or a sister or parent? Why did we go above the state?
I know when Bradley and I were speaking about it, his concern would be things like they're voting on raises. They're voting on decisions that impact teachers. And also, well, you all, if you have children, you kind of have an inside line a little bit from your children, maybe not a full perspective of what's going on, but a board member who has a sibling or, somebody else that's in their family may be getting information or
Absolutely.
have a different line. So that's often why you try to have restrictions.
Yeah, and
But
I agree with that, and that's why I feel like putting in that there's an exception to any policy is really kind of,
We've done for having that statement in there.
I just don't know
Well-
that I necessarily support it, that's all.
Mariella?
Do you know if the intent, I got the impression that the intent was that the appointment would only be until the next election.
Right.
The spring election, it would not be, because this term had just started, so whoever came on would have to take out papers in February if they wanted to stay on past June.
yes, that's what Bradley said.
Okay.
Bradley said they would have to run in April, and if they were elected, it would only be a two-year,
term.
because this is the first of the 3 years.
Okay.
Karen?
my only concern would be if we had a disciplinary action or if we had to have some sort of committee meeting, that puts that person and the board in a very difficult situation that I wouldn't personally want to be in. And I think abstaining from it would be obviously what I could assume that person would do, but that could also put us in a position too where we may not have the number count to get a good vote for it, so. That'd be my only concern.
I would make an exception to this policy, from what Mariella just said. It's only to the next town meeting election. They could say, well, they appointed me last year, so I didn't run this year.
Right.
So that clause is, as far as I'm concerned, up the door.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And all those in favor of the motion?
So the motion, just to clarify,
To
The motion is
not accept the
to
candidate.
not
not,
accept the
to
exception.
not make an
To
exception.
not make an exception to our policy on nepotism. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? And
Okay,
two
Mariella
opposed.
and Ed, sorry.
Mariella and Ed.
haven't left yet.
Please don't.
We're not gonna let you.
So if we go back and say, do we want to, I guess we just put it back in their hands. I don't know if we want to discuss any sort of time frame of, it just, I guess, just continues on, that they keep checking every month to see if they can find somebody.
And what I would say, we have put it out to staff members to talk to neighbors and community members, parents that might have an interest, and I'd encourage you to do the same. Tell them how great this job is, and
And we'll
that,
get wind to put it in the newspaper.
yes, yes.
I wondered about the PTA as well, if they put that out to folks that are.
I think they have already put it out to all of the parents, so it's a
So
matter
it's
of putting it out to the broader community,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay, thank you. The next one was a transportation appeal, and before this meeting, the Facilities and Transportation Committee met to discuss a transportation appeal, and we reviewed the policy in terms of bus stop because it was an appeal around bus stops, and we made a decision by policy, which says that that committee can make a decision in terms of that bus stop. But there was some changes in language that we would like to suggest in terms of that bus stop policy. And maybe Tina, if you could kind of elaborate on that and why we feel we need that.
So what's been happening with the bus stop appeals is Tom Kelly will get the first, request to change a bus stop. And he, as we have asked him to do, is following policy. And then they're appealing to me, and again, I'm looking at the policy and making a decision. Are we following policy with the decision we've made? And the answer to some of them is yes, but. It makes sense to have some exceptions. Sometimes they're in the best interest of the RSU and also the families to do that. And an example would be the last board meeting, the daycare that had 4 pre-K, and knowing that if we didn't provide a bus stop near that pre-K, we would lose 4 pre-K students, which in turn means the RSU loses, subsidy for 4 students, and pre-K, of course, we get kind of a double subsidy for because they're only here half a day. So it would make sense in situations like that to be able to have some discretion for the superintendent and maybe even the transportation director to be able to make a decision without having to go through an appeal at the board level and pull a committee together for something that's obvious. And that's what we found tonight, is we had a situation tonight that it made sense. It was in the best interest of the district and the family for us to cross the Raymond line by, 3 or 4 tenths of it's about 0.7 round trip. We felt like if we'd had the ability to use some discretion on that policy previously, it might have saved a lot of frustration on the family's part, but also a lot of time.
And also, I think what Tina's been trying to do is uphold what we asked her to do, which was trying not to make any exceptions. And so she's done what we asked her to and been really black and white and firm. But there are some situations that probably there is a need for some discretion. And so it's really been, I think, a tough couple of weeks for Tina in trying to deal with those and trying to deal with them in the way that we've asked her to. And I think we were clear in terms of the committee this evening in that if it was a situation that benefited both the district and the student, that Tina should have some discretion in those kinds of situations, which the one we talked about tonight did. The bus stop will be a better, safer place for every child on that bus, but including the student that we're picking up there, and is a benefit to both.
Yeah, so for the new business to add that language to the guidelines so that I feel more comfortable making a decision like that, and not feel like I have to come to the board each time. And like I said, I think it's going to be rare when it is at the benefit of the school department as well, because usually there is more cost or it does add to the bus run. So I don't believe there will be a lot of circumstances where I feel like I need to use that discretion. But
I'll make a motion we give the superintendent discretion for what policy is that?
that is EEACR.
It's called Student Transportation Procedures.
Do you want me to repeat that, Kim?
EACR?
Yeah.
Student transportation procedures.
And Annette will second that.
So Steve,
Steve, and seconded by Annette. Is there discussion? Mariella?
So could we have the next meeting have that policy with the proposed the language change in it, so that we could officially approve it and sign it?
Yes.
Or can we approve
Well,
it tonight?
if we approve it tonight, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We would still need to
Right.
have it in writing.
Right,
and
we
sign
still
it.
need to have it so that it could be signed.
Can you clarify what the language exactly is that you'd be adding? Or do you know? I mean, I just,
So, yeah, so if we added in that, that
Down here.
yeah, it would probably be something along the, what I would suggest is the board gives discretion to the superintendent to make decisions outside of this policy when there is a benefit to the school district and the family.
can we add something in there too about, something about reporting back to the board or communicating with the board when this occurs or something like that? Because I think the only caution I have with that is that this happens and then the board isn't aware that these things are occurring, these sort of exceptions, or, and something comes back and we hear about it later.
Put it in their monthly
Yeah,
report.
well, that's what I'm saying, so I just want to make sure it's
And I was
part
going
of
to
that
say,
process.
yeah, I think it would be wise to say that we'll report any exceptions to the Transportation Committee when they meet, because like one of the ones I was telling Mary Martin about is we have one daycare that is right on the corner, just over the line from Elm Street to Poland. There's 21 kids there. Well, actually, I think Tom said 2 left, so they're 18 or 19 now. And the bus drives right by, but it's over the line. And it does not make any sense that we would not pick up 18 children who are feet from the town line when the bus drives by their site. So that's the kind of example where it makes perfect sense for us to do that and to make sure we're not holding up in a process by getting a committee together and having to go for a board meeting, all of that. So I think it would be easy to say under that bullet that the superintendent will report all exceptions to the Transportation Committee when they meet each month. Scott?
I'm not sure if we want to make an amendment to the motion, but this authority that we're giving to you, I think should be limited to until the new language of the policy is approved by the board. That's my thought.
Yeah, I guess I got a question, Scott, Mary, Mary, Matt. I mean, we approve that tonight, I mean, we're gonna approve it so it can take effect tomorrow morning.
Yes, I understand, but
Right,
what I'm saying
this
is,
what you're saying is
what I'm saying is, make the motion temporary, the authority temporary until the policy has been read and approved by the entire board. That's all.
So you're suggesting that we give...
Because what we approve tonight with this vote could supersede the policy.
So you're suggesting that we give her the authority until the next meeting?
Until the next
And
meeting,
at the
when we
next
approve
meeting,
the
that is an
policy and the
agenda, that
language.
policy is an agenda item with the language in front of us?
Yes, that would be my suggestion.
And the motion on the floor was to change the policy tonight, correct?
Just to clarify again, I think, I wonder if the language you would want to put about the reporting piece to the Transportation Committee, or if you just want to say report to the board or something like that. And the reason I wonder that is thinking long-term, and if something changes with the Transportation Committee, you know, then you already have that. So I just wonder if you want to make it more sort of general.
Okay, Steve has a motion on the floor that's been seconded, which would be to put that in effect tonight, and that language tonight. So which is a little different than what Scott suggested. So all those in favor of Steve's motion? All those opposed?
Oh, no. Now we have to do this, now you're making me do this weighted vote piece. Okay, so.
All right, let's do, you want to do all in favors first, or?
Sure.
All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. That would be Steve.
Steve from Minot.
Grace.
Grace from Minot.
From Poland.
Poland.
Aaron from Mechanic Falls. Missy from Mechanic Falls. Mary from Mechanic Falls. Julie from Minot.
Julie.
No, it's not beautiful.
Minot. So these are all.
Jen, was yours?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay. So we have 50, yeah, for two 50s. and then we have 3 at 57.
It's
gonna be a process. And then we have 94.
Okay, so it looks like we have 365.
So the motion does not pass.
Okay, the motion does not pass. Mariella?
I'd like to make a motion, oh, you wanna make?
No,
one?
go right ahead. I've caused enough trouble.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the exemption that the superintendent would like to grant in this case. And that we, I guess, and then after that, we can discuss bringing back the proposal.
Well, I think that the policy isn't really clear, but we had decided by the committee that was there that we did have the authority to make that decision at that, as the appeal committee.
Okay, then that the appeals committee made,
Yeah.
that we would support the recommendation of the appeals committee.
Okay.
I think that procedurally, it seems to me
Well,
that's the
and it
way
was
we should
unclear.
go.
I'll read you what it says in the policy, because we
Okay.
went back and forth
Yeah, we don't
about
have the policy in
whether,
front of us, so it's kind of hard.
about whether we did. It says the RSU 16 school board decision is binding and further appeal on the bus stop will not be reviewed during the school year. It says that, but it also says here that we have, that committee has the
Let me read it.
authority.
Right here, it says, in making a decision on the
Okay.
appeal, the committee can,
Yeah.
and it lists the decisions they can make, which is to establish new guidelines for administration to use in placing the stop due to the unique circumstances, or they can support my decision, or they can direct the administration to relocate the bus stop. So the committee doesn't need the authority from the board. From the sounds of this, it says that that review committee makes those decisions. We just wanted to change the policy because what I know is we have a situation that we came to our door today, that we're gonna be right back in the same situation, need to pull them together because we're driving right by a student's home. And there's a situation that makes obvious sense for us to make an exception. And so by having this changed, at least even if it's for the month until the new policy comes forward, would help us not to have to pull that committee again in a week or two.
Then if we can I just continue because I made the motion? If we could, if you have the policy in front of you, even if we could take that policy, handwrite in some language, photocopy it, I just think I would feel more comfortable with people voting on a policy if we actually have it physically in front of us.
Be like my motion.
Well, can we grant, provisional decision-making power to the superintendent if it is in fact a win for the student and a win for the district until that policy is finalized next month. Because personally, I voted opposed. It's not that I'm opposed to this process. I am opposed to just blindly saying, yeah, sure, let's go ahead, and we don't even have the exact language yet. So that was my hesitation. So I would feel more comfortable saying that I would propose that we give you provisional status to make those decisions if it's a win for the student and a win for the district until the next meeting when we have a policy revision.
I was gonna say, it's kind of similar to giving me hiring authority in the summer.
Right, exactly.
No, Mariella, that's different than what you said.
But that's
Are you-
fine because
okay.
it's not affecting the policy permanently without us having the exact
Okay.
language.
Yep,
Right.
and I would agree.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So-
Policies that we voted on here last month and approved with the changes being the new policies.
But we knew what the language-
I asked for on this policy I just recommended. No difference at all.
Well,
Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, we had the language,
We have the original policy in
Right.
front of us, though.
and we only had a few minor changes, like with some
There's
wording.
only one minor change.
Don't take it personally.
Tina, would you
It's
like
sorry.
to,
I just want to see what good goes together.
Tina, would you like to make that as a
So-
motion?
Yes, I would like
Could you
to
state it, please?
make a motion to, what's my verb? To extend privileges, or provisional, what is it?
Authority.
Thank you. Provisional authority to the superintendent to make decisions regarding transportation if it is a win for the student and a win for the district until our next meeting when the policy is finalized, or policy is revised.
Okay, do we have a second for that? Second from Julie? Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed?
I'm gonna abstain.
All right, there's one
easier
abstention
at this
from
point.
Aaron. And
Two
everyone-
abstentions.
Oh, who else abstained?
Oh,
Steve
Steve did.
abstained.
So,
Okay,
So it must pass.
yes,
Aaron and Steve.
yes.
No.
Okay, and the next one, there was in our packet substitute rates, and if you read, oh, excuse me, what was that, Win?
At the last meeting, you had a request for that. Can that be approved by the action you just took?
are you talking about the request from the daycare at the last meeting? We did approve that already.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when we left the meeting last time, we had voted if we had the permission from the owner of the
And
property.
you got that.
Yes, we did.
We,
so-
we actually didn't get permission from the private business, but we did get permission from,
The neighbor as well.
yes, the neighbor who owned the property nearby, so we did approve that.
So this is really for a couple of other people.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
If you read through our administrative package, you would notice that there were lots of ed tech positions still open. And one of the issues are what we're paying for ed techs. We have lots of substitutes, so we're having to get substitutes to fill those positions. So Tina has a request she'd like to make in terms of our ed tech substitute pay.
This is again one of those situations that if it wasn't time sensitive, we'd put it through the Personnel and Finance Committee. But right now, earlier in the week, we had 12 openings for ed techs. We're now down to 9, I think. Yeah, I can see Holly nodding her head. And one of the things that's happening is we're having a hard time getting anyone who will sub for an ed tech because we pay $50 a day. And so when I spoke, so there's a couple things you've got to do is you can't raise the ed tech sub pay without it impacting some other positions. So I'd like to start at the top and talk to you about what I would like to see this committee do for paying for substitutes in general. The teacher sub pay, I'd like it to be $75 whether you have a degree or not. You have to do the same job. If you're a teacher, if you're a sub for a teacher, you have to teach the class or classes that teacher it oversees for the full day. And so I'd like to eliminate the $60 pay and just have $75 for sub pay. For the extended sub pay, again, you can see we have a non-degree is only $70 a day when they go to a maximum of, and they can only do it for a maximum of 10 days. And I don't want to have us have a regular sub get 75 and not have that person get less. So I was thinking about increasing that rate to $80 a day. The others are fine in that line. And then down to the ed tech sub pay, increase that to $60 for the ed tech per day. Yes, and 30 for half a day.
So, I've got a question.
Yes.
What is this going to do to our budget line? And how is this going to impact it first and foremost?
So of course, it depends on how many subs you have in a year. We've budgeted what we believe we need for subs, and there's always, you try to have enough budgeted to meet the demands.
But that was
Right-
based on the old amounts,
Yeah.
right?
Right now, we have teacher salaries who aren't being, or ed tech salaries that aren't being paid. And so they're paid more than a sub. So it comes from a different line, but there would be a buffer from their line to for the subs that we're filling. So I don't foresee it being a big problem for our overall budget.
And then the only other follow-up question I would have is how does this affect the negotiations with other teachers and other roles being degree and not degree?
Can you say that again?
So teachers get paid differently if they have a degree in a certain area versus a sub, right? So what's the difference if a sub has a degree or doesn't have a degree? Shouldn't we pay
So-
differently for education?
So, the teacher does all the planning for the substitute and has already, a credentialed teacher has already planned out the day and left all the materials.
Okay.
And so, yes, more education is always better, and you want to have ed techs that have some, you want to have substitutes that have some education. Most of ours do. There are very few that have only a high school education. So this wouldn't impact a lot of people, but what it does is it allows us to get people willing to sub for an ed tech, whereas right now they don't want to.
I gotcha.
So I am now the voice of Julie Rio. Who can't speak.
Who's lost her voice.
Yes. But she wanted to know about if there are ed techs that would want to be full-time. Is that right?
Substitutes.
You have to be an ed tech for the substitute.
No, any substitute, anybody who had a, what we say is an associate degree or higher, but anybody can sub for an ed tech, as long as they have a high school education.
And often there are people on the sub list that will say, I'll substitute for a teacher or an ed tech. Some substitutes choose to do just teacher. Some choose to do just ed tech, so.
And we can't try to persuade them to go to school.
We can, but, when it's a substitute, we don't pay for any of their education. So again, whether the substitute comes to us with education or not is not, again, our preference is always people with some additional education. And I would say, I asked how many did not have an education. Carol Depot said there were just a few in our sub list. So it's not, like I said, it's not a huge deal, except that I'm trying to make sure I don't pay, an ed tech sub who, for a substitute for an ed tech, they always have a teacher in the room with them, and the teacher's telling them what to do. That's a lot less responsibility than a substitute for a teacher who's on her own. So I wanted to make sure that that was a fair compensation.
Since we have 9 openings for ed techs, I just wondered if the climate has changed a bit, because I know several years ago it seemed like there were a lot of newer teachers who would actually take ed tech positions because there weren't teaching positions available. So it was sort of a stepping stone to getting a teaching position. Has that climate changed? Is that why we have so many?
Well, we do have some ed techs that have teaching degrees. Again, I think I don't know what the, I don't know that there's a surplus of teachers out there, so maybe they're getting teaching jobs.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And I
wondering.
don't know that. But we don't, Holly?
I want to say, we do have several certified teachers employed as ed techs because they are trying to make that stepping stone.
Right.
But there are some that will not work for that rate of pay because they can go get part-time jobs in other fields to make more money per hour to pay back their loans. So there have been refusals for some certified teachers that they just won't work for the pay.
Okay, do we have a motion? Would somebody like to make a motion regarding?
I'll make a motion to approve this new substitute rates as recommended.
Second.
Okay, that was Ed and Missy. Is there any more discussion?
I just want the board to know I'll be abstaining from this vote. I have a friend who is a substitute teacher at Elm Street School.
All of those in favor? Anybody opposed? And one abstention. Okay,
I got one question on all over.
what's that?
When they work over 110 days, do they get any benefits with their salary? When do they consider full-time? Or do they?
So are you talking about if they're a certified teacher and they work the no limitation on days?
Yeah.
If they worked for the whole year and there was a substitute? No, they're considered a substitute. And until you filled it as a teaching position, substitutes don't get any benefits.
Okay, and our next one was the agenda adjustment, which was new business, girls ice hockey. And there was something along with that, which I'm thinking was probably from Dawn. So do you want to speak to this, Dawn?
Sure.
All right.
So I just wanted to give the board just a little update as to how things have started off the school year, and let the board know that It's been an awful lot of work over the last years chasing hard copies, paper copies of medical forms, emergency contact information. And we made a switch this year to an electronic registration, which I think the feedback from parents has been pretty positive about that. And it should save them a lot of work in the future as far as having to duplicate those forms, so I'm pleased with that. I also thought the board might be interested in knowing that we have about 98 kids at the middle school participating in our fall athletics program, which is about 40% of our population, and I think that's pretty good. It seems to be up over the last few years. We're just a little bit below that at the high school, 38% participating in athletics. So still feeling pretty good about that, and I do recognize that the fall is one of our busiest times in terms of number of offerings for teams. When I talked to the board a few months ago, actually before we went for summer recess, about our boys ice hockey co-op that we have with Greater Gloucester, and we have reached out to Oak Hill High School. They're actually meeting with their school committee on Wednesday so that they can determine if they're going to have approval or not. So we're really hoping that they do. We think that that could help our program and help reduce the cost, actually, of not just provide players, but reduce the cost that some of our families are putting forth to play ice hockey. Along those lines, we've had a young lady played ice hockey for us last year from Poland. We have a couple more kids coming through the middle school that are looking to participate in ice hockey, but there's been an outcry for an opportunity for the girls to play on a girls' team. Our girl this past year played on the boys' team. The rules are a little bit different. The girls' ice hockey, they don't allow checking, and boys they do. And clearly there's some physical differences, and so I think it would be, I listened to us talk, and it struck a chord when we talked about providing opportunities for our kids that are equitable and fair, and I think that this would be a great opportunity. I reached out to some local schools. The one ice hockey team that seemed to make the most sense, that had any interest in having us participate with them, would be the Edward Little Levitt Red Hornets. They had about 20 players last year, and I met this morning with the athletic directors from both schools. They would be very interested in having us join with them. And so I think one of the big sticking points is, well, first of all, it's a 2-year agreement that we petition the MPA to participate in that. We're just looking at what it would cost us. And so we're looking right now at a per pupil cost. It's not budgeted for this year, so it would certainly be something that would be absorbed by the families as well as perhaps some of our gate money or something along those lines. I think that those two schools are interested enough in having our kids participate with them that we can continue to work on what that would cost, but we're looking at a per pupil cost. And that would be a 2-year agreement at that rate, and then we'll see if it's working for us or not. And I'd have to come back to the board to ask for permission to do that again. I feel really good about this chance for our kids to participate with them, and I'm hoping and asking the board that they would give us approval to petition the MPA to do so.
So is that what you need from us tonight, is in order to move to the next step, and the process is that you petition the MPA?
Each school needs to go to their school committee to seek sanctioning to participate, and then we send a form with principal signatures as well as a copy of the school board minutes showing approval for that to happen. So that's what I'm hoping.
Make a motion.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion, we approve your authorization to proceed forward.
Aaron made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ed. Okay, what do we have for discussion in that?
You mentioned a rate. I'm assuming that you don't know what that rate per pupil is yet, or a ballpark?
A ballpark. So we, what I spoke with Tina about, I think what would only be fair is never asking the kids the young ladies to pay, or their families to pay, more than what we ask our boys to pay. And so our boys have paid anywhere from $450 to $625. We obviously are trying to keep that on the lower side of things. It's all dependent upon how many kids come out. And so the rate per pupil is just under $1,000.
And then my other question was, do you know how many girls you have interested in this that would take advantage of this opportunity, roughly?
Right now I have pretty solid feeling about a sophomore girl. I have an indication that there might be a freshman that's interested, but I know there are kids in the middle school that are coming. I sent a survey around to our young ladies grades 7 through 10 last year to ask them about potential athletic opportunities for them, whether it be volleyball or tennis or ice hockey. There were 20 girls in grades 7 through 10 that responded that they would be interested in playing ice hockey. There were probably about 6 of them that have played ice hockey before in an organized fashion. So I don't believe that we'll have 20 kids, but it would be interesting to see what happens if we provide the opportunity, how many would step forward.
So with boys hockey right now, you mentioned the fee for that, and it sounds like it's paid for by the parents, or does the athletic program help support that? Or?
Absolutely, our budget does.
Okay.
So we share the cost between Gray and Gloucester and Poland, and we monitor that in different pieces. It's pretty even between Gray and Poland, and the interesting thing over time is that this past season, we had probably 13 kids on the ice hockey team from Poland, and maybe, and I forget exactly, but maybe 4 or 5 from Gray and Gloucester. But just 3 years ago, it was completely reversed. So I think over time that works out. The school picks up the cost for everything in the program, just like we do for other programs for officials and transportation, etc., with the exception of the ice cost. Because and we've justified that because ice hockey, the cost of ice time is so large in comparison to, we don't pay that much for any other venue. And so we pay a little portion of the ice time, but the rest of that comes from the families.
So roughly, what is the budget that you set for boys hockey? Yeah, just to give a sort of rough estimate. I'm trying to think strategically, like a few years from now, if the program does grow, what are you looking at for, just kind of doing a comparison.
To be honest with you, Tina, I would love to get back to you with that because I think I wasn't prepared to say that out loud. I could guess at it.
Yeah.
I do know that when I talked with one of the sticking points when I went to the Edward Little athletic director and Levitt athletic directors last spring or last winter about this was, the first answer was, yes, we'd love to have your kids and you can pay a third of the cost next year. And I said, whoa, we can't do that. That's not fair, and I know that I wouldn't get support for that. So the budget last year for the Red Hornets ice hockey team was about $19,000. And that covered their ice costs. Their kids don't pay for ice hockey and stuff. So they split that at about $9,500 each.
Just for ice?
No, that's for the whole program.
Oh, okay.
So coaches, transportation, etc.
Okay, good.
So if you split that a third, we're talking a little over $6,000. But we're not looking at doing that at this point. We're looking at getting those kids involved, and then we'll talk in 2 years where we're going.
Right. Thanks.
Scott?
If our girls were to join this Edward Little Levitt Red Hornets team, would they consider changing the name to the Red Hornet Knights? Or the Red Hornets?
Unfortunately, that took up some of the time. But what's required if you have a cooperative team is that each of the schools are represented in the name of the team. That doesn't necessarily mean in the mascot name. So they were previously called the, let me think, I can't remember what but they had the Edward Little Levitt Red Hornets. I think what we talked about doing today was leaving it the Edward Little Poland Red Hornets, but their emblem, their logo, is a hornet, and it's red so that they have the red eddies. There are portions of the hornet that we would color navy blue. We also talked about the possibility of putting a sword in the hornet. Oh my God! Because right now the two hands have skates on them, so we thought a skate and a sword. But I think they have uniforms that they just purchased a year ago. We probably would look at doing something to the helmet to incorporate our color.
You get any more questions, Scott?
I may have some more later, so stay tuned.
Mariella, do you have a question?
I was thinking, do we have a policy that the first year, and I don't know how this works because we already have boys hockey and we're sharing the team, because I was thinking we had a policy that for a new team, it had to be self-supporting for the first year.
I'm not, I'm walking on thin ice. I'm not familiar with that policy. I know we've discussed that practice, but to be honest with you, Mariella, we have not added a team in the 10 years that I've been here, so it's untested.
Oh, okay. I was thinking I saw that.
That might have been before it was RSU.
Well, the last team to be added would have been the, I think hockey, ice hockey, boys ice hockey, and football came in at the same time.
Right.
And those were supported through other monies. And I would say that for the first 2 years, or at least I'll speak right now, should this be approved, there's no school budget money going towards the ice hockey team. It would be looked at coming from the parents or coming from other revenues that are driven.
So if that's the case, then that would fit within
fit.
that parameter anyways.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Abstaining? That was unanimous.
Awesome, I'd love to
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Don.
And just to briefly tell you that, so we've now approved this, and I'll have copies of the minutes for us. It still needs to go to Levitt and as well as Edward Little. We'll petition the MPA. The MPA rule says it needs to be done 6 months prior to the start of the season, which we've missed that deadline since women's ice hockey starts in November. However, their past practice has said that hockey is so much different. There's so many cooperative teams that they've made a lot of exceptions to that rule. I've been in contact with the MPA, and I'm confident that we would be able to provide this opportunity for them should the other two schools approve it. And the only other thing I'd like to say is I'd love to give a public shout out to our field hockey team, which opened the season with a 2-1 victory in overtime over Kennebunk. Then they beat Greeley in overtime 3-2, and tonight they beat Cape Elizabeth 2-1. So without looking it up, I would be very, very confident in saying it's probably the first 3-0 start to the field hockey program.
That's great.
That's awesome.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn. Okay, the
It's all
next,
Kim. All Kim. Good mojo.
next things
The mic is on.
are
I forgot about the mic.
administrative reports, A-team reports, which are in your packet. And Carrie isn't here tonight. Would you like to tell them why Carrie's not here tonight?
I would, and if you read Carrie's report, you probably already know this, but just in case a few of you didn't, Carrie is in Washington DC at the Teacher of the Year recognitions, Principal of the Year recognitions, thank you. And she will be there for 3 days, so we're really proud of her and excited. And I told her I was expecting to see a picture of her with President Obama when she returns.
And looking through the report, Carrie starts hers out by talking about Skip Crosby, and I got an email from him today who said he thinks that the selection committee that's going to visit the high school will be here next week. So
They're supposed to be here on the 18th.
yeah, the 18th. And looking through the elementary reports, and actually all of the reports, there were a couple of things that I thought were kind of common threads, and that was what we talked about earlier, that there's still a lot of ed tech openings, but also that it was a positive start to the school year. That what I noticed was there's been lots of opportunities for communities to be in our school through open house and meet and greet. And the other thing that to me really stood out was it reinforced the idea that even though it's summer, schools are busy, busy places in the summer. That students were provided extra opportunities to extend their learning, and that the summer also sort of provides that foundation for a successful year. So I think there are sometimes the understanding that school closes and this isn't a busy place, but schools are busy places. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Real quick question, and it is an intelligent one.
All of yours are.
All
Scott.
three schools have mentioned their current enrollment. do we have last year's numbers so that we can have a comparison? Are they up, are they down?
Yeah, in my report, I have that on there, but we're still doing the final reports. So, right now, like I said, the high school is up about 10, down about 10, but the middle school's up 7. The elementary schools, I didn't have the figures about how they compared to last year, so I'm gonna hold off to, until next month to give that. But we've got some pretty strong enrollment numbers around the district, I would say. And they've been enrolling fast and furious even the last week before school started. I know Sean Vincent said like 12 students had enrolled in about a week and a half before school started. So it's been a really busy time. And yeah, I think overall they're looking pretty close to last year.
Missy?
I was looking at Jenny's Adele Bed one, and the homeless liaison report. Is it really PCS have all those?
Yeah.
And the high school has none?
I thought there was one for the high school, wasn't there?
One for
Or no?
Whittier.
Oh, one for the middle
0.
school, yeah.
You know, my thought is I can see teenagers, you know, but to see it at K to 6, I thought sure it must be an error.
No, there's no error.
Okay.
Doesn't it include if, you know, you're staying with relatives or friends? I
Right,
think
but
you
still,
count
K to
towards-
6-year-olds, you know, or pre-K to 6th
They're
grade sounds
sort of
very-
transient.
So the homeless designation, you have to have, to be designated homeless, you don't have a stable, fixed, adequate, overnight environment. So if you are staying with a relative and it becomes a fixed and stable, you're staying with an aunt, or your family has moved in with, you know, a friend even. Once that becomes fixed and stable and adequate, you are no longer designated as homeless. So when we have 9 students, is it? Trying to remember what our report said, but district-wide, so it'd be 7. Yeah, that's still a concern. That's a lot of our kids that are in unstable and not adequate, you know, inadequate. I don't know if that's the word, but yeah, environment. So,
How many of them are related?
I don't know. I don't have that in front of me, but there probably are siblings. There could be 2, you know, children in one family.
Like me staying in my doghouse.
Any other comments or questions around administrative reports? Report of student representative, she's not here tonight. Kylie Martin is our new student representative, so hopefully she'll be here next time. Our subcommittees, we will be back to our regular schedule in September, which will help. We'll meet September 22nd for subcommittees, and then we'll be back on our schedule. Just a reminder to committees that when you vote, when you meet, each one needs to vote on the chair. That the educational policy one was the only one that voted on a chair, and Jack will chair that committee. Let's see.
And they'll be at the union office again this year?
Yes.
22nd, you said?
Yes.
So, Mariella, was there anything that you wanted to report for personnel and finance?
We are working on negotiations. I met with Tina for a couple of hours this afternoon, and we're gonna be meeting with the negotiations committee on Thursday, and hopefully have something to report back to you soon.
Okay. And as I said, the facilities and transportation one met earlier this evening to do the bus appeal. Educational policy, we have developed our survey and distributed it.
Not distributed yet.
Okay.
Developed, it's made, and then I wanted to have a day to review it. I had Kim actually read it and make sure it looked perfect, and it will go out tomorrow.
Okay, good. And what we did was try to expand it a little bit over what it was last year. Look at the things that we thought last year were still pertinent this year, and then looked through the strategic plan and tried to pull out some things that we thought would help us in terms of extending that plan and seeing what things had worked and what things we needed to continue to work on.
Can the final survey be shared with the board so
I'll
that
put it.
folks are?
I'll put it in the board conference icon, so you can see it all. And also, we will be sending it to all of our, we have a staff survey, and then we have community parent survey that are just slightly different. Many of the questions are the same. So for the staff one, we'll send that all directly to them. For the parents, we'll send that through through our, our messenger system, and then we'll post in on our website, the main page of our website, and also at all the town offices, and have copies in the schools so that we can get the further community. So spread the word if you're in your communities to go to our website and fill out that survey for us, because we want to get community members that maybe don't have children as well as the ones who do have children, to see how well they're informed about the work of the board and the school department in general.
And I passed around the draft copy. There may be small changes in that, but there's a community one and a staff one, and they're similar to a point, and then there are some questions that are different. And also a reminder to the Educational Policy Committee that we're meeting September 15th at 5 o'clock with Craig and hopefully any other board members that are available. That's September 15th at 5 o'clock, and it's at Central Office.
Central Office.
And that will be to work with Craig to plan the October 18th meeting.
Craig calls it a pre-planning meeting, so he will come and make sure he knows exactly, all the details of the work we've done, and then he will take what he learns from that meeting and then prepare the agendas for the October 18th meeting.
And the next thing was the report of school board chair, and since our last meeting, Mariella and Jack and I met, and we went over the goals that we established for this year and that were in your packet. And tonight I'd just like to talk to you about a couple of things, and we're not going to do any action on those. Remember, the three goals that we had for this year were communication and engagement with key constituents, board function, and the strategic plan. So if you look through the document that's in your packet, there's the goal, and then after each of the activities, what is highlighted, what is in bold, is what we have done during this year to address that activity. And then also, there's a link to the strategic plan. So if you can kind of just review that, and if you do and you see things that we've forgotten, you can just send me an email about those. We talked about possible goals for next year, and if you look to the very last page, there are some recommendations and considerations for goals for next year, and it's our hope is that at that October meeting we can, as we look at strategic plan development, that we can also kind of finalize our goals. And the suggestions from Jack, Mariella, and I were that we continue to focus on the communication and engagement with key constituents, that we think that continues to be important. But we thought what we might be a good idea is to focus that communication upon some very specific topics. And some that we thought as possibilities were the teacher evaluation plan, the proficiency diploma, the facility challenges and solution, our middle school issues, and maybe our cost-sharing formula, that we might want to choose 2 or 3 things to really make it a goal for us to gain some information about them, and then to be able to make sure that we're sharing that information with key constituents. We also just suggested that next year we develop a firmer schedule to have board members attend the municipal governance meetings, the selectmen and the council. We did it this year, but to even structure that a little tighter. And then within the strategic plan, there's a goal around board function, and we suggest that maybe we look at that a little bit closer and draft a goal that addresses the shared expectations for meeting and being familiar with policies and ethics. And then refine our strategic plan goal after that October meeting. So if you could kind of just keep those things in mind, if there are things that occur to you, send me an email, and this will be one of the documents that we will share also with Craig, so he knows where, kind of where we're focusing and where we see ourselves heading. I also wanted to make sure that people knew that the MSMA Fall Conference is October 23rd, 24th. If anybody thinks that they're available to attend that, to let Lauren know. And at that one, there's a delegate to the annual delegate assembly, which talks about the resolutions that, and that's on Thursday, the 23rd, 2 o'clock. And last year, Joe did that for us. So if there's somebody that's going and thinks that they would like to be part of that, we would need to just take some action at our next meeting in terms of that. So those were the things that I had to share.
Do you know, I know Joe did the schedule for the select board meetings, do you know if that's something that we'll do again? I haven't seen one.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that's something that we'll do to get, and that,
really well.
that we will even make it more formal, so that, because in Mechanic Falls, we kind of just said, we'll do the best we can to go, and we all did some, but I think it would help if we had a formal one, and I think probably Poland's was pretty formal.
It was,
Yeah.
the schedule that we had, and it seemed to work well, I thought.
Yeah, so yes, we'd like to do that again. The other thing was the candidate forum, that is September 25th, and you said you were going to that?
Yeah, I've signed up to attend, and I'm hopeful that I can still do that. We have a bunch of other things that week that are piling up, so I'm kind of on that edge of whether I can still do it, but I'm hoping I'll be able to attend that.
So if somebody thought can they sign up through Lauren, or?
Yes, and they've asked that we sign up
Right.
by August 22nd. So I did get a more current email, and so I think they're still accepting applicants, but if, well, actually, did I see, no, they don't have a follow-up here, but we just got another list, so I think they're still, they are accepting applicants still, I think, or attendance requests. I would just do it really soon in the next day or two if you plan to attend.
Okay, and report as superintendent?
Most of mine have been covered, so I'll make this short. I know that will break Steve's heart down there. Yes, you have it. You've done a great job. So first of all, we do have a new staff hire at Elm Street School, Lindsay Savage, our last regular teaching position that was open, 6th grade, so we're pleased to have her on board. You can see we have quite a few support staff hires. We have an Ed Tech 1, Barbara Farron. You can see we have quite a few coaches on this list. We have a football coach, Mike Susi. We have a soccer coach, Tyler Tracy. We have an assistant football coach, and I can see on these next two names I should have asked for help with them. And I think Don's paying attention, so he can help me out with our football coach, our assistant football coach's last name. Jeffrey Lagu, okay. And our girls soccer coach, Marciola. So we have Cassandra and Marciola, thank you guys. And then we also have two food service staff members. Pamela Winslow, is a food service assistant, and so is Judith Miller. Both of those staff members are at PRHS. And then the other things that I want to talk about, of course, our enrollment, I shared that we'll bring that forward to the next one. And we've talked a bit about charter schools. Our expense towards charter schools is $123,000 right now. We budgeted $130,000, so we're still within our budget amount. No big surprises this year. We have about 50 students that are homeschooled in the district, and we have one of the things that we are doing is that we not only documenting who's homeschooled, but we're keeping track of who's turning in their assessments. By law, you're supposed to turn in an assessment every year that you homeschool, and the RSU hadn't been doing that in the past, and so this year last year and this year we started making a big effort on making sure we've got all our procedures in place. And so Jean McNally has been working really hard to make sure we verified our homeschoolers. We have 4 or 5 who have decided to enroll in our school system this year, and there are a few others that are sending their students away to private schools this year. But we've been working really hard at making sure we have a good accounting of those homeschool students.
So when you're going to have more information about the numbers, will you include them and just sort of the towns that
where they're homeschooled.
Right, so if we know there's 50 homeschoolers
Yes.
and maybe, 10 are from this town and 30.
Sure.
Just so we, kind of gives us an idea, I think.
Sure. And then, same thing with superintendent's agreements. Those are, we asked for those to come in July, but they have been coming in quite regularly all summer, and I just signed a couple more today. So again, it's just keeping track of which students are getting superintendent's agreements, and knowing whether do we have as many going out as coming in, does that balance out? Right now, the last time I looked, we have quite a few more coming into the district than going out, which is good for us. And hopefully after this week, we'll have a good solid number on that, and all of those requests should be in and complete. So. We've already really talked about negotiations. Mariella gave an update. I did want to share that as of August 31st, the contract ended. So the staff are working without a contract now, and that is, one of the reasons why Mariella and I and the negotiating committees are working really hard to wrap that up. I know the staff are anxious, and I know we are as well. Jen's on that committee and knows that they know the hours we're putting in trying to make sure that gets done and gets done well.
We had a meeting last week, meeting this week,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you.
And then the last thing I had, I guess there's two more things. Just wanted to talk a little bit about opening day. I wanted to thank Missy and Mary for both attending opening day. I know that's a bad time of day for most of you if you're heading off to work, but I think it does really speak to the staff when we have some of you there. So I do thank you both for being there. And we had a pretty positive experience on that first day. We have the 7:30 to 8, we have breakfast, foods, muffins, coffee, tea, and staff come and hang out, and a good percentage of our staff come early enough to spend time socializing, so that's always nice. Mary opened the meeting and spoke for the board and did a great job, and we always say it's interesting because we always build off each other very well, even without spending too much time together doing that. Kim and I both spoke, and we gave out these little pins for Focus on Geese. If you read Kim's minutes, you'll know we kind of did the what we can learn from geese theme. It's been around for a long time, probably since the 1970s, but it really matched our goal to talk about shared leadership and kind of that collective responsibility that doesn't matter what your role in the district, we're all teachers because kids learn from us every time that we interact with them. And having a real focus on the staff that we're all working for the common good and to support each other, and that they all contribute to the climate and to the well-being of our whole school community. And that was well received, and I actually have a pin for everybody, and I forgot them. I realized once I got here, I was like, oh, I left the pin, so it's going to give you all one, so you can wear it when you're attending school functions and have staff see that you're also part of our school community and supporting the efforts that they put in. So just wanted to share that with you, and let you know that we recognized a lot of staff. We recognized, our goal was to do the 10, 20, 30, and 40 years of service, but I realized that we had 45 or 46 staff members with 15 years of experience, many of them here at the high school, because this is our 15th year of existence. So we decided to add the 15 years of service because none of our high school teachers would have been recognized for the 20, 30, or 40 if we hadn't. So that was nice. We had a good group picture of our 45 or 46 staff members that were at the 15 years of service. So that was a good day.
Just want to recognize somebody, just jump on to, this was my first year of dual middle school, and the common purpose that Sean and his team showed to get those kids acclimated was just huge, and it was empowering to all those kids walking through, seeing the different schools blend together. Didn't even care what town they were from, and I know that's been a huge focus for us. It's about breaking down those barriers. So Sean and his team are doing a wonderful job over at the middle school, and if nobody has been through there, please set up an appointment and go over and check it out, because the kids love it, even though it is a hallway. I'm sorry. But they don't see it that way. They see it as a very cool bridge for them, and my two sons came home invigorated. So thank you to everything you're doing, and it made a transition very, very easy for me as a parent. So.
So that's, and then we had resignations. As you can see, we have 3 more ed tech resignations. 2 of them were ed tech threes, and then one of them was an Ed Tech 2. And then Linda Chason's resignation from the secretary for the board. And I do want to come back. One of the things we've been talking about is the exit interview data. And so I have pulled that, and what I'm realizing is we don't have a lot. We have probably out of, the 19 teachers that left, and then, we have a lot of ed techs, I probably have 8 or 10 that actually completed the forms or did an exit interview. So if the board would like, what I thought I'd do is write down, just do an analysis of the ones we have, and just know that we'll continue to work on trying to get staff to fill them out. And once we get in the habit of making sure we're telling them we want to hear what their information is, and build a little trust in that area, hopefully we'll have better participation. But we didn't, when I actually looked at the list, I was like, oh, we don't really have as many as I thought we would. So
I think it would be helpful to see the information that they've shared, but also what we're asking, because I don't even know what the exit interview consists of. So
Right.
that would be helpful. Yeah.
I will post the actual questions on our school board collaboration in first class, but I will actually bring the exit interviews for you to see. And I mean, if you would like, I don't know if it's, I'll bring the information for the board to at least look at the overall, the kind of analysis of the data.
I just think it's a great way to start thinking about how to strategize for retention and those kind of things.
Yeah,
So
I
that's,
agree.
that's all.
So.
Okay. There are no communications, no executive session.
I move we adjourn.
Do we have a second for that?
Did you sign these
Second.
policies?
Second from Tina. All right, all those
Mary,
in
did you
favor?
sign these policies?
Yeah.
Oh.
The policies, yep, they're right there.